How's everyone doing today? Hope you're all doing well. Alright. So today we're going to try something new that I've been wanting to play for a little while. It's Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel's putting out new games that seem to be actually good, which isn't bad. Let's get over to the studio. So yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy looks actually pretty good. I'm actually pretty excited about that. I didn't know when its release date was until like a couple weeks ago, and then Bike Man was playing it, so I got excited because I was like, "Oh, look!" And then I avoided all spoilers and stuff like that. But so it looks actually pretty good, and I'm excited to try it. And I hope you guys enjoy it too. Kind of reminds me from what I did see. I didn't see much. A little bit of like Mass Effect kind of feel, but I don't know. We'll make our own decisions once we're in. I've heard nothing but good things about it, which is pretty good. Alright, let's get over to gaming. All my Star Trek cards that apparently fell all over my mixer. And I have my obligatory peppermint, mocha, hot chocolate here. That's now cold because I made it an hour ago.
Where's the explosion?
Alright, there we go. Alright, so option. What you do. And that is CDRM King. No, wait, CRDM King. Thank you for that follow. Welcome to Mobile Infantry Trooper 91 with us. Full screen. It's exclusive. Weird that they have it like this, but at the same time, I'm kind of down for it. 1920 by 1080. Don't know why you were set to that other shit. Alright, brightness. Fine, probably. We could fix the rest in game, I think. On. DLSS. I want to see what the YouTube thing is, though, because I am curious. Or is it just like. Oh, okay, it's literally Square Enix. Oh, Square Enix was putting this out. Oh, I completely didn't even realize. That's pretty cool. Alright. You know it's going to be a fun game. Alright, let's get into it. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Da 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 do. Oh, and so you might see that pop up now and again. I pretty much stopped using Shadowplay back in like 2016 or whatever because it was kind of dog shit. But apparently it's better now, and I've been using it for the past couple days when I kind of do some offline play. But occasionally some really good shit happens because I'm not streaming, I'm not looking at chat, and I'm literally just crushing people in Halo and whatnot. So I've decided to put on Shadowplay so I can start like clipping them. And I've got some really good ones from Halo, and that was only from like 2 games. Text voice. Fine. Video. I mean, fuck it. I don't care about monetization, so that's completely fine. Alright, I'm gonna guess though that the game might need to be turned down slightly. My volumes are all up. Nah, it should be. We'll see. So far, this game's like not super loud, so might bump this down a little bit. Well, actually, I do like to hear people over everything. Bump you down to 75. We'll see how that works. This. Wait, seriously? Home theater, headphones, soundbar, television. Yeah, studio works best. Oh, that's kind of cool that you can do the full. Oh man, it's like so old Battlefield used to let you do stuff like that, which is pretty. All right, I'm down to just get into this then. Hallway, subtitle size. I'll do small. That's fine. Head subtitles, closed caption. If I don't like this, I'll shut it off because some games it's unnecessary to have actual closed captioning on, because then they do like weird stuff like dude shifting in his clothes and it's like I don't really need that. Okay. Oh, okay. Hey Dustin. Hey boys. Alright, so that looks like that's all good. Accessibility, see if the target lock break. Disable target lock. Wait. I don't want. We'll see if this is what I think it is. Yeah, I'll do that because I don't like QuickTime events. Target switching, initial delay. I don't know if this is auto aim or aim assist. I hate aim assist, so target. I don't know. We'll see. I'll keep that on because I think that might turn it off. Like I don't know. All right, so gamepad, mouse, keyboard stuff is real quick. All right, we'll see about all this once we're in game. How about that? Here we go. Video. I might have to turn everything back up actually. This might be the first game with good audio levels, like to start with. Like, oh my god. It's actually not bad. Look at that. The game started out without blowing out our ears. Alright, so for those who don't know, this is closer to the comics. Like it's meant to be more like the comics. So if you're not used to that sort of thing, the Guardians might look weird. They might act a little different. Yeah, then you got Big Groot over there instead of Baby Groot. Alright, let me just plug in my phone real quick. Something. Okay. Something I was about to do. Ah, I cannot remember. Alright, whatever. This is fine. This is fine. Alright, and yeah, it seems like it has reasonable audio levels, which is kind of crazy. Okay, apparently you understand the privacy notice. Yeah, sure. I might have to drop the screen for a second if it tries to make me log in. Okay, cool. Can I play? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so let's look at audio real quick. Keep that like 90. Dude, that's actually not bad audio levels. Like, I'm so surprised. Okay. Go Square Enix, man. Let's do this real quick. We're gonna run a quick benchmark and see if I need to tweak anything visually. Visually. And then we'll get into it. Oh, and we had two other offline follows that I forgot to mention. Kitty Mancer and Ethrilles. Thank you for those follows. Welcome to the home of the mobile lifter. Now you're both one of us. Yeah, let's get through this benchmark real quick. We'll see what it decides, and then hopefully that should set the game to about where it needs to be, so I shouldn't have to tweak it. I want it to be pretty. That stutter there. Other than those two stutters, it looks like it's running fine. Wonder what's causing those stutters, though. That's kind of weird. Oh, did I update my graphics card? Damn. I don't know what they were doing for this, but goddamn. Yeah, it's not even using half my crap. Everything's set to medium. What? I'm so confused. It's like when a game is not even that pretty and it still like kind of shows your system what's up. Let me just see. Graphic preset to very high. I don't need ray tracing. Motion blur needs to be off. Radial blur off. Yeah, let's turn that off. Doff is fine. That's fine. Star-Lord. Alright, I think that's fine. We'll see how it looks once we're in game. Alright, we got this. Kick back, enjoy the story. Guardians of the Galaxy, your enemies will cower before you. Before your might and Roush's power fantasy, whatever that is. Am I misreading that? You're ready to face the galaxy. You may stumble or even fall, but you'll always pick yourself back up. The intended Guardians experience. We got this, probably. We don't got this. No one said being a superhero was easy. You'll take a beating like none other, and only the most battle-hardened Guardians will make it out alive. We do it our way. You are the master of your own galaxy and want to fine-tune your personal... Oh, that's kind of neat. You know, it's the first playthrough, so I'd probably go with, like, we got this. Oh. Ah, there's a lot of options, man. What's huddle auto win? What? You will not be presented with a choice wheel. The huddle sequence. During the huddle sequence. And the correct answer will automatically be selected. Ooh. That seems fine. Alright, let's get into it. And a lot of this is songs I haven't heard in forever. Like, that's what I love about Guardians of the Galaxy. They always, like, bring back songs that are just like, hey, remember this? Oh, it's the house. Wait, does the closed captioning have to be in the center of the screen? It's kind of annoying. Another reason why I turn off closed captioning. Yeah, I'm gonna turn off closed captioning after this. Darkness inside, no guts, no glory, soul of sky. Oh, I can look around. Oh, okay. It's cool. It reminds me a lot of Brutal Legend. Achieve escape velocity. We're far from being angels, maybe fallen ones. Record review is 4.5 stars. No, 3.5 stars. Still pretty good. I thought I heard knocking. Oh yeah, real quick, let me shut off those closed captions. Right in the dead center of the screen. Terrible. Audio? No. Audio accessible. Ah, look at that for people like me that can't hear good. I can set it so I can hear higher frequencies better. That's kind of good. Ah, that's so cool. Good job, Square Enix. Like, really. I'm very impressed with this. Alright, where's, this? Oh, where the heck is the closed captions? There it is. Alright, so we're gonna shut off closed captioning, and that should leave everything around the bottom.
You can hear me.
There we go, looks a lot better.
Is that your new tape?
Hi, Mom.
Star-Lord. Who's the guy with the scary eyes?
He doesn't have a name. He's one of the Space Riders. And he's not scary. He's cool.
Your space rider certainly got his hands full.
Like how she was bobbing her head before
Pretty
she
far
started
out.
listening to it.
Nobody says far out anymore, Ma. Ma,
Ah, stop being a loser.
nobody says far out anymore.
Oh, well, your mom does. Maybe we should see if we could get tickets to see them live.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Your mom may not look it, but I was quite the rocker when I was your age. Your father and I would just lie on the hood of my old Chevy and listen to Black Sabbath and...
You like Black Sabbath?
Like I said, your mom's cooler than you think.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mom's
we'd
cool.
look up at the stars and tell me all about the places he'd been.
Mom?
How about some cake, huh?
Yeah, I'll be up in a sec.
You said that 15 minutes ago. If you don't hurry, I'm gonna eat that whole cake myself.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I would.
You wouldn't.
Yes, I would.
Hey, watch the hair.
Kind of looks like my aunt.
Peter! We've talked about you leaving your toys on the floor.
It's not a toy. It's an action figure.
More like an action landmine.
Also my
Stab
room.
your
Thank
foot.
you.
I will.
He doesn't even... Never mind.
Oh, it's Chewbacca.
13 whole years. Look at you. Where does time go?
I'll be up in a sec. I promise.
Right.
So far, I'm digging it. Why would you get up that way instead of the other way? Oh, what happened to your eye, little buddy? You get into a fight with your mullet.
Oh man, I can't wait to play this. Maybe I can convince Andy to buy it with his paper out money. This will be worth hundreds of dollars someday.
Oh, that's cool. So, how's the music compared to my voice? Is it like overpowering me right now? It's hard to tell with the mixer at the moment.
3 natural ones in a row last game. Some barn I turned out to be.
Aww. Caves and creatures. That's actually scarier than a beholder, I will say. Whatever that thing is looks like worse. I need to turn up the sensitivity on the mouse though, because I can't look around. Oh. Mouse keyboard. Sensitivity. Boop. And boop. 0 mouse acceleration. I'll see if that makes it like... Oh yeah, that's a lot better. I don't like that it's not even though. Like this way is a lot faster than this way.
It's pretty crazy that all that destruction started from one little mistake.
Oh, it's Gremlins.
I gotta beat Janie's high score. This is embarrassing.
Is there a way to do it? Because I will. I will stomp their score right now.
Oh
Fix
man,
exploration.
traveling through space must be amazing.
Navigate the cosmos. Alright, I'm gonna bump the left and right down a little bit so it's more even. That's the X, I think. Actually, I think that was up and down. I got an easier way to figure that out. Oop. Oh yeah, that's left and right. Okay, so gotta bump the Y down too, bump the X up all the way. Yeah, I should do it. Oh, dude, it actually has Tron because it's Disney. That's cool.
The final battle was awesome.
The last
Looked like the heroes were done for, but they pulled it off.
Starfighter.
Can't believe I caught this. That maiden show was awesome.
That's cool.
Love to be able to ride one of those light cycles.
Where man has never been, never before now.
Might as well just peel the stickers off and put them in the right spot.
Me as a kid. Can I dominate real quick? Alright.
fingers are still cramped from trying to bookmark pages. I know it's not how you're supposed to play, but I'm tired of dying everywhere.
Choose Your Own Adventure books were a favorite of mine when I was a kid.
The movie was okay. The soundtrack really kicked butt.
Oh, this one looks familiar. Can't remember what that one would be. Alright. I don't know, it feels kind of okay. Almost. You almost got it, little buddy.
Need to build up my calluses.
Yeah, that too. You do any others or just same song? Oh, you do.
Bit rough. Gonna need to keep practicing.
The blackness.
Peter Quill.
Oh, it was just a dream.
Holy crap, Drax. You gotta stop doing this, man.
That's some
It's
pretty eyeballs.
weird.
We are approaching the quarantine zone.
How long was I out for?
15,338 ticks.
That's very specific.
The betrayer is ready to begin her mission. She has requested your presence in the cockpit.
Gamora's on our side, Drax.
She is the spawn of my sworn enemy, a murderess and a traitor. I do not trust her.
We'll try. We're supposed to be a team.
I make no promises.
Yeah. Looking good. I like that he has earbuds. Or at least a earbud. In a way, though, Star-Lord is living the dream. Alright, I am gonna bump down the music a little bit.
Oh, it ain't.
Let me do. Yeah, sure.
Just a junkyard. The quarantine
It's
zone is
so
the biggest
loud.
pile of galactic war debris in the known universe. Just think of all the tech we can find. Hey, it's only illegal if Nova Corps finds us inside, which
That is
they won't.
ridiculous.
Groot's right to be nerfed.
Alright, let me bump that weight. Cut it in half, how about that?
Miss Rocket, don't underestimate the Nova Corps.
Oh, come on. Am I the only one who ain't scared of the Galactic Police?
They've got the numbers on us.
But they ain't got the brains. Ha! Sure takes a genius to
Dude,
catch
sounds
my ship.
friggin' cool.
My ship.
Who said that? Quill? No, I think I heard him. Nah, never mind.
Drax. About Gamora.
Can this not wait, Peter Quill? I am readying my body for battle.
You know we're supposed to capture this monster, right? Not kill it?
Of course. But I suspect it will not go down without a fight.
Cool it, Muscles. Lady Hellbender ain't gonna buy damaged goods.
I will aim to preserve the integrity of the beast as best I can.
Good.
Groot really needs to get these plants under control.
What was this button?
Yep, I use these for smuggling. Hopefully I won't ever have to smuggle myself in there.
So that's exactly what I'm gonna have to do. Calling it now.
Just pocketing a little something so this job don't turn out like our monster hunting gig in the Hilda cluster.
Please, no. If I see a single jellyfish rat in the quarantine zone, I'm turning around.
Hey, come on, Gamora.
What is it?
Dude, take 5. We gotta talk about that Gamora
Okay, so
thing.
it's doing the same thing.
She is waiting for you in the cockpit.
I know, I just meant... Are you gonna be okay? You two are gonna be alone on the ship for a while.
Rest assured, Peter Quill. I will keep a watchful eye and thwart any attempt at treachery.
Or... you could try trusting her.
You are naive, Peter Quill. She is a mistress of deceit. Morgoth be with you.
Hey, Morgoth yourself. Morgoth is a politeness thing. Cataphian customs don't make no sense to me, bud.
Good old Milano. Engine parts from at least 5 different black markets.
Here, you see that?
Cool.
Yup, that's the cable coming out right there. Flarkin thing keeps slipping off the socket. Gotta be careful when you plug them in. Just in case. Doubt you'll have
Damn.
to fiddle with any of this once we're on the ground.
Weapons everywhere. Alright, so this is definitely Gamora's room. The art of war.
Ha! Take a look at this. Had to use our last roto adhesive, but I finally got the shielding plates in place. These babies are gonna be
Drax's
able to
room.
survive a full quantum blast. Or a space monster. Talking about the quarantine zone here. Quantum blasts are
bad
just as likely as monsters.
I think that's the way I'm supposed to go, so we'll avoid that real quick. Alright,
Ah,
talk to
there you are, Quill. Tell Groot to stop worrying about getting arrested. I'm not overconfident. I'm just the
Dude, this
right
version of
level
Groot is so
confident.
beefed. Like, he looked big. Arrested, what for? They'll shoot us on the spot.
Arrested? For what? Our ship
Unconvinced.
just accidentally slipped into the quarantine zone.
Oops, our navigation malfunctioned.
Oops.
How would we accidentally cross into the Nova Corps force field?
Details.
Who left the fucking fridge open? Oh, who left the
Rocket!
fridge open in
Did you
general?
bring back the docking chips you took from the...
Nice gizmos, Rocket.
I'm calling them thumpers on account of the noise they make. Assuming we get past the force field and reach your coordinates in one piece,
I like
all we
this
gotta
little
do is
beard.
set them up, and these babies are gonna draw out our monster in no time.
Let him work, or it'll let you finish up. Investigate thumpers. How's it even gonna work?
How's that even gonna work? The thumper goes beep, 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 and the monsters come running?
It goes more like, wah, wah, wah.
Holla, rocket!
Stop this ruckus at once!
And then the monster comes a-running out of its hole.
Are you sure about that?
Hey, all my intel came from your source.
My sources are very reliable. Those coordinates are 100% pointing towards a rare, elusive, priceless creature.
With no physical description to go by.
What do you think elusive means?
Don't matter what the monster looks like. As long as it's got ears, you could be sure my thumpers are gonna drive it right into our arms.
Alright.
Oh yeah, you remember that dealer who asked about the emitters? After you left, he he leans over to me and he says, what do you need these for then? Yeah, like I'm turning the Milano into a dance club or something.
Please refrain from creating this club of dance.
Yeah, we all know how you feel about dancing. Well, what was I supposed to tell him? I need them to build some ultrasonic lures so my team of ex-cons can trap a mystery creature in the most legal place in the quadrant. You want to throw in a discount?
Team costumes. Rocket, you know how much for these things? Oh, okay, duh. I misread it. You want how much for these things? When I said matching gold costumes, I meant gold colored, not actual attacking gold. We want potential clients to think we've got wealth, not wear it on our sleeves. That makes us a target. Here's the deal. When the time's right, we'll give these costumes a test run. If they survive it without any holes, I'll settle up with you at, say, 6% of what you're asking. Best I can do. They look flarking amazing, by the way. Ooh. This must be Rocket's little room. His little
Hey, Groot,
hammock.
did that escort job on Orga ever pan out?
Okay, so it's the same thing.
What do you mean you never called her back? Don't know if you noticed, but we're flarking broke.
Oh, and this is my room again.
Wait, what kind of escort was that contract about? Yeah, maybe I'd rather be broke.
Wish you were here, Mom.
Aw. Okay. Let's head to the cockpit. Well, first let's look out the window. Oh, that's definitely a force field.
So, Drax, excited to meet our buyer after we catch the monster?
Or it's a
Of
planet.
course. Lady Hellbender is a legendary warrior and a noble queen.
And she's rich.
That is not a prowess, simply a commercial fact.
As long as she buys her monster, she doesn't need to be royalty.
You are
Gamora?
Up here, Peter.
Dang it. Didn't mean to interrupt it.
Hey, that's my chair.
Oh. Then why aren't you in it?
I was, strategizing. It's one thing to get into the zone, but we still gotta catch that monster.
Right.
So did I miss anything?
Other than a ton of suspicious glares from Drax, not really. Now, if you're done strategizing, feel free to grab your seat. We're almost ready to go.
Oh, that's so cool. And so far it does kind of play like Mass Effect, so that's good. That is a pretty sweet chair, though.
Okay, here we go. Rocket, Groot, Drax, get in here. We're going in.
We still have a few ticks before the next time window, actually.
The next one.
Nova Corps security grid resets every rotation. We want to be in and out before our code expires, or we'll get stranded.
And if we wait for the next reset, we'll get a full rotation to do this. Nice.
Oh, why's the Novanet still up? Thought we were going in.
Well, it appears the assassin's contacts are as untrustworthy as the betrayer herself.
Oh, please don't tell me Gamora's backdoor codes are bust. We nearly went broke getting them.
Relax, Rocket. We still got a few ticks before the next time window.
The network just reset. You can enter the sequence, Peter. 0451.
That's it? 4 digits?
Suspicious. These security measures are too simplistic for Nova Corps.
It's not that simple. The code only works on this date for this ship.
Oh, I get it. Gamora's codes are more there.
I hate that it keeps interrupting their stuff.
realized there was so much stuff left after the war.
Restraint wasn't very popular in the Shatari army, especially with Thanos in charge.
Yeah, it's probably all harmless now. I mean, Nova Corps had 12 years to get rid of the heavy-duty explosives, right?
That's why I like you, Quill. You're so pure. Oh, the wonderful and terrible things I could do with all this tech.
Stay focused, Rodent. We do not come here to scavenge.
Why not? The Milano's weapon systems could use an overhaul. Plus, there's good money in it.
The piece that we seek is far more valuable to the Monster Queen of Seknarf 9 than any illegally acquired salvage.
Whoa!
Place is really shifty.
I'm not seeing a monster, but that big cylinder up ahead looks like the mining ship Peter's friend said to look for.
Friend.
For a night? And you'll see the monster soon as we place Rocket's monster summoning thingies.
Flark, yeah. Groot, Quill, suit up. Team Rocket's up first.
Team Rocket.
I still do not understand why I must remain on board with the assassin.
Oh, because you're part of Green Team.
You assigned me to the team before you named it, and my skin is not green. It's teal.
Teal? What? Listen, if we want to trick the monster into going inside that mining rig, we need to place thumpers on
This
both
seems
sides.
fun.
2 sides, 2 teams.
And 2 clicks at the drop site. Ground's too unstable to land the ship, so you'll need to jump.
That's our cue. Let's go, Groot.
Don't worry! Once the thumpers are placed, we'll meet in the middle and we'll capture the monster.
Yeah.
Together.
Very well.
Alright, and I'm gonna bump down the game a little bit. So apparently it sounds fine for me, but it's like blaring on stream, so.
Thumper 1, done.
Meet you at the rendezvous point.
Okay.
Gamora, take care of my baby.
It's a ship, Peter, not a child.
Huh. Oh, can you imagine?
What, the pink goo? It's custom nano resin, designed to keep all this war stuff from floating away. Hey, starboard! Wrong way!
You guys sure you don't need help?
Nah, it's totally safe. Now, can we please focus less on the toxic goo and more on all this cool war junk it's holding together? I didn't mean toxic. More, don't put it in your mouth toxic.
Yep. Being here definitely feels a little weird.
Yo, Quill! These coordinates are so reliable. How come we're the only ones out here trying to catch this thing?
We're the only ones crazy enough.
Don't worry, it's safe to walk on, mostly. That's why Green Team's on the Milano. Heck of a lot more dangerous to fly around in here.
I'm thinking that big cylinder thing is our rendezvous.
Yeah, that's the mining rig.
So weird seeing it all clustered together like this. Bits and pieces of a war that spanned the entire galaxy held together by pink goo.
Ebrium-based nanoresin.
Whatever. I'm just saying, it's a lot to take in.
You know, I think I do sort of get it. Oh, look! Yellow and blue. Looks like an old Nova Corps frigate. Nice!
Come on, dude. People probably died on that ship.
Killjoy, why'd he even bring us here if the place is so sacred? I can name at least a dozen planets with monsters on them, so why here? You think it's to impress Gamora? Like, hey, check out the serious intel I got from, shady sources.
Please, keep going. I'm falling in love.
Keep the combat armor on, Murder Mom.
Murder Mom. Let's see how he gets across.
It is strange.
Oh, that's cool.
I have not
That's about how
encountered
I
any corpses
thought
in
he
the
would.
wreckage.
Probably got disintegrated when the ships went kaboom. Or The nanoresin absorbed them. Could explain its propagation. Or the closed atmosphere accelerates decomp. Whoa!
Okay. I'm okay.
Ha! Almost made yourself a very late war casualty.
Not funny.
A little funny.
You know, I like this. This is fun. The three of us, hanging out, just like when we started this gig, before you-know-who joined us. I do not hate everybody. I tolerate Quill.
Come on, Rocket. Drax and Gamora are valued additions to the team.
You're only saying that because she's listening.
Is that why your plan has Drax and I taking the ship?
Maybe. Hey, can't a guy want to spend some quality time with his friends?
I think I'm gonna swap the melee button though. Melee.
I told you, we ain't gonna get caught. There's only like 3 ships left in the entire Nova fleet.
Nova Corps has more than 3 ships.
Pretty sure that way's a dead end.
You sure?
Ah, there we go. Path's this way. Come on.
How can you even tell?
Just trust me, all right? Hey, Groot, you think we could find pieces of the Tryon Shard in here?
I'm Groot.
You never heard of the Tryon Shard? Pyramid of pure evil that corrupts everything it comes in contact with.
I am Groot.
Making things up. Name one time I ever made something up.
I am Groot. I'm Groot. I am Groot.
Ah, shut up. Ask Gamora. Bet she's heard about the Tryon Shard. Hey, Gamora!
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, come on. I know Thanos had his hands on it during the war.
How'd you even know the other way was a dead end?
Because, unlike you, I have a very keen sense of direction.
Same.
I heard Nova Corps once wanted to cover entire planets in Novanet, just like this place.
I am Groot.
Hostile ones, I guess.
I am Groot.
Yeah, I wouldn't want the world mind picking and choosing. Most of my favorite planets would probably become jails. Watch it, Will!
Whew! All good, no worries. Take that, brittle stuff.
Looks like there's multiple ways around.
Ugh.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hate these ship-eating parasites. Clarkers would chew right through the Milano in 2 cycles.
Huh. Oh. Interesting. All right.
Gross.
Nice splatter. Hey, 50 units says I can clear more of these suckers than you.
As if. Whoa, what the? Rocket, did you do that?
The scoreboard? You like it? Hacked it into your visor cover last time you took a snooze.
You hacked into my stuff?
Considering how many times I fixed the Flarkin thing, it might as well be my stuff.
Okay.
Optimal thumper placing distance should be just up ahead.
I'm Groot.
I'm thinking right in front, through the giant hole where this ship's cockpit used to be. Well, that's grim.
I am Groot.
Yeah, try not to think about it. It's better not to wonder what happened to anyone working on these old wrecks. It was a long time ago anyways.
All right. Let me see if I can kill more than him.
Yeah. Yeah.
been recording. Bridge over, Groot. I want to see if he's alive.
I am Groot.
I don't know, but he's twitching. Flarkin, Scott Stain, Quill. You okay down there?
Yep. Yeah, just, thought I saw a shortcut.
Right.
Go ahead without me. I'll catch up.
Okay. There's a crapped out Nova Corps missile bay just on the other side. We'll meet you there.
Yellow and blue missile bay. Got it.
Nice.
Trying to bring the whole place down, Quill?
I shot a thing.
I got it. First tool in the old toolbox.
Now this brings back memories.
What is it? Smartwatch? Yeah, maybe. Thoughtful captain. No. Guardian collectible, you found a Ravager comm bracelet. Okay. Someone might have.
That is exactly the kind of scrap we're looking for. Way to go, buddy. Don't be so modest. That was a great find.
Green team, checking in. Seeing a lot of...
Ooh, don't die, don't die, don't die!
I was listening to that. I really hate that it keeps cutting off the dang audio.
Hey, little guy. What is it? Whoa, what the fuck?
You dead, Quill? We can hear your wussy squeal even without the comm.
We're busy! Crap! That's cheating! You guys should have seen that. It was this weird, blobby thing. Not falling for this again. It's so jiggly!
Ah, the hallmark of a fossil clone.
What's another one?
He's fine. Well, hurry your fat human butt up! I would say Peter Quill's posterior is more round than fat.
Everything okay over there?
Quill nearly got himself eaten by a blob or something. Should have heard him squeal.
You must fight with dignity, Peter Quill.
Or at least die with it.
Not funny.
That's cool. Yeah, so far this feels a lot like Mass Effect.
Hey, Gamora, make sure the Milano don't get stuck in any of this resin.
If she did, I would wrench the ship free.
Don't worry. I've flown worse ships through worse situations.
Quill, we got a lot riding on your gal pal's mystery monster tip. I hope she's legit.
I'm Groot.
Like you could even tell if she had an honest face.
I am Groot.
Trust in the plan, guys. Everything is checked out so far, right down to the mining ship. We put our thumpers in the right places, and we'll bag that monster.
Quill knows all about putting thumpers in the right place. And getting monsters in the sack, too.
That's fine. Look at those guns. They're so big.
Mother of Scott! Move!
What? Oh no. Time to hurry. Come on, Quill.
Are you kidding me?
Son of a schmag! That was too close! You okay, Groot? Quill?
We're fine, but we can't jump that.
You don't gotta jump. There's a sturdy support beam on this side. Get Groot to grow a bridge across. Just ask him nice-like. He does it for me all the time.
Morning saber one.
All right, Groot. Let's see that cool viney thing. That's one hell of a party trick, big guy.
Gross. More ship eaters. Ah, they're everywhere. All right, back to business. Boom! Right under your nose, Quill.
Fuck. He almost knocked me off. You saw that?
Do I look worried? The resin will hold.
I am Groot.
Groot, I found a hitch. Can you latch onto it?
Hey, Greenies, you see any blue and gold ships out there, you let us know.
We have seen many such ships.
He means active ones. We haven't talked about what to do if we run into a Nova Corps patrol.
We will restrain them until we are done here.
Bad idea. Those cops are all connected through their stupid helmets.
If you see cops, you get my ship out of here. Even if it means leaving us behind.
Flark that!
Trust me, I've dealt with Nova Corps before. Even helped them catch real criminals. I can talk my way out.
You think that Milano can outrun a fully powered Nova Centurion?
She's done it before.
Alright.
Okay, here we go.
All right, set her down right there. Yep, one to go. Flark! No, no! Flark and Skaggy! Attack and batteries fried, that's what's wrong. Maybe you put it down too hard.
Let's just find a solution.
The solution's a new battery, with a charge.
Okay.
But can't
We're
we just
on
do
what's
that
left
after?
of a ship. Full of ship things. Gotta be things that power ship things around here, right?
Yeah. Maybe you're gonna want to use your visor for this. You find a replacement while I finish scraping the fried wires.
Huh. Worth a shot.
Brittle materials.
This place really makes you wonder.
About what?
What Nova Corps hoped to do by sweeping all this up and forgetting about it.
Maybe they just wanted to move on. Leave the past behind.
The past cannot be left. It follows our every step.
I feel like that's going to be important later. Unsecured access panel. Cabling cover is not secured. Please contact maintenance for repair. Neat.
Gamora, when are you gonna share your contacts and sources?
When will you share yours?
What? You know about all my guys.
Only that you've got a guy that makes the booms, you've got a guy who can reconstruct faces, you've got a guy who never says no.
Oh yeah, I love that guy. And hey, it ain't my fault I ain't no good with names, but I can always place a face. Unless my face guy gets a hold of them first.
So much for that.
Fueling cable. Galactic grade fuel supply cable. Universal socketing on ends allows all types of ships to refuel
All
from
this
carriers or
firepower.
stationary tanks.
Now it's all just scrap. Yeah, sorry, bud.
Blink missiles.
Sorry about what?
Devastating
Groot's
experimental
people never
Kree
even got a
projectiles
chance to
capable
fight.
of
Whole
dimensional
Dastan planet was
phasing.
torched at the start of the war.
Self-adjusting propulsion to deliver blink payload inside of the target vessel. Oh, that's friggin' cool. That's the kind of weird crap I would come up with. Just teleport it inside their freaking ship and then explode. Yeah, just blinks
Of
inside
course
their
we're
ship.
going the right way. Just keep your eyes on that mining ship.
Can you use this missile?
Chitauri
Sure I can.
Doptery
To blow us to
bomb.
pieces. Keep looking.
Chitauri thermonuclear bomb.
So,
nicknamed
Drax,
Scarab.
how come
by
you're so in love with this
resistance
Hellbender
forces.
I do not love Lady
Emitted
Hellbender.
distinctive
Yeah,
chittering
you'd be all
sound
like,
on
"Her
impact
name
seconds
is
before
Illusion.
target planet
You cannot bend hell."
exploded.
That does not at all resemble me.
More blink missiles.
Hey! A huge power generator!
Inverter
How do we hook
generator.
it up?
Low
We
emission,
don't.
high output
that
generator.
thing would toast our little thumper.
Can't we
Commonly
condense
used
the power
in,
through a routing funnel or something?
Don't try to make up tech stuff.
Yeah.
It's irritating. Find something else.
in Shi'ar Falcon fixed wing interstellar spacecraft. Thing. Same thing.
How do we know the monster we're looking for ain't one of these things we already killed?
Found a compressor. No charge.
Procuring shuttle compressor, decommissioned oxygen compressor, retrofitted by resistance forces stationed
Any
on
bets on what this monster's
Mercury
gonna look
during
like?
the standoff against Chitauri.
How many legs? Like, more than 4?
It will be majestic.
What does that look like?
We shall see.
Oh, maybe it has to do with these things.
Found something with a charge. Kind of looks like a spacey car battery.
Lucioid or xenon cell?
Okay, this thing isn't gonna zap me, right?
The chance is minuscule, at best. You'll be fine.
Here you go.
That'll do nicely. Just let me tinker a bit. I'll have to do some tweaking once I see how much juice this thing puts out. So watch my back.
Watch it from what?
Blocking monster thing! Everyone get ready!
Rocket! Help me scramble some critters!
No, Scott! If I don't rewire this fast, it's gonna short circuit!
Looks like it's all us, Groot!
I'm Groot.
Tie him down!
Groot, the last Flora Colossus. Groot is a vigorous defender, able to withstand high amounts of damage. He is focused on crowd control. His basic ability, Entangle, mobilizes enemies in a small area for a short amount of time.
It's like pumping a zip! Hit him down, Groot! They're really coming out of the woodwork!
Just keep them away from me so I can fix this thing! Come on, you hunk of junk!
Take your time, Cole!
Oh.
Thanks for the heads up, bud!
Bigger one.
Brutify him, Groot! Keep him away from that missile, Groot!
If that thing was gonna blow, it'd have happened already!
Bye-bye, little guy! Another one down!
How long does it take to shoot, Scott?
We're working on it!
Keep your distance! Just keep these things away from me!
Easier said than done!
We're all plugged in.
Wow, just in time.
I'd like to see you fix it next time. Come on, 2 down, 2 to go.
That's really cool that they have different ways of going up and like across things and stuff.
Groot's wondering if the reward's gonna be worth all the risk we're taking for this job. Me and Groot are nearly unkillable, but what if the rest of you don't make it out alive? If the 2 of us gotta lug that monster...
Guys, we deliver this
I really
monster
wish it
Lady
wouldn't
Hellbender
interrupt,
will
though.
get bigger
That part's
payouts
starting to
and
bother
jobs
me.
that don't suck.
A ship for each one of us!
I mean, a team only needs one ship.
Perhaps a more spacious ship.
What? No, I love my baby.
We can modify her. I'd kill for a Gunner's Rotunda.
We'll think about it.
I'm Groot.
Groot wants a plant.
Groot, man, we will get you 2 plants.
I'm Groot.
Yeah. I'm weirdly surprised the pink stuff isn't making me stuck.
Man, that thing is ridiculous. Think it was a ship or a robot?
That's a Kree Sentry, a robot, but it would have been space-worthy.
I'm Groot.
That ain't even the biggest one. They designed at least 5 experimental models twice that size. Plus half a dozen Mega Sentry prototypes, Star Stealth models with modified sneak attack parameters.
How do you know all this?
Because they were my fellow experiments back on Half-World. Most of my parts came from the cybernetics hangar next to the door, so I got a sneak peek at all the new killbots. I could see the parts come and go from my my cage.
I didn't mean to open old wounds.
Most of them are just scars now anyways. This old Kree tech gets me wondering. Where would I be now if those blue buttscots managed to keep me locked into their half-world experiments?
I am Groot.
Yeah, chances are you'd be climbing over bits of me right now.
Where am I? Oh no, I'm stuck. No, I'm stuck. I can't move. Wait, to jump? No, I am really stuck.
Of course there ain't any plants here. It's a junkyard.
Wait.
Plants grow where they got food. This place is nothing but scrap and nanoresin. And no, they couldn't live off the goo.
There we go. I hear chittering. Where is it? I can hear them.
Nova Centurions probably had to tow all the scrap to one place. Sure, not really their job description, but Nova was spread pretty thin after the war. Hey, kept them off of my tail at least. I wasn't even a person to the worst of the Kree's mad scientists. More like a real smart walking gun.
A very talkative gun.
Yeah, that part was an accident. They tried to fix it a few times. The entire facility was the problem. I wish I'd gone back and blown it up before the end of the war.
I think it's a glitch sound effect. But now I see you. God damn it.
Peter Quill, the double agent is trying to lull me into a false sense of security.
He's touching thing.
And the moment you drop your guard, I'll strike.
Aha! So you admit it?
You got me. My plans are foiled.
Dang it, what is with all this stuff being stuck constantly? I can see them there. I'm gonna try loading. The glitches are so annoying. At least I know if you fall off things, you kind of just end up back over.
That thing is ridiculous. Think it was a ship or a robot?
That's a Kree Sentry, a robot, but it would have been space-worthy. That ain't even the biggest one. They designed at least 5 experimental models twice that size, plus half a dozen Mega Sentry prototypes. Hey, you trying to keep me talking just to distract me?
What? No, I'm listening.
You're cheating is what you're doing. I'm trying to have a serious, discussion here.
I literally missed the prompt, and that makes me sad.
Of course we're going the right way. Just keep your eyes on that mining ship. That's where we want to end up.
What's a mining ship doing in the middle of all these fighters anyway?
They don't call them casualties of war for nothing. So what do I gotta do to get a last name like Drax's?
Catathians have no need for surnames.
What about the Destroyer?
It is a moniker to mark the countless I slaughtered during a shameful period of untempered rage.
Yeah, one of those! I could be Rocket the Ruthless, because I'm pretty sure I ain't never had no Ruth.
Groot, need you to shoot a bridge right into that eye socket.
Now, I want to see you do that to something in combat.
Yeah, me
Wait.
too.
Yes! I'm about to win this bet, Quill!
It's nothing. We're inside a giant robot head.
And I got robot parts inside my head.
You have robot parts inside your head. Inside a giant robot head. Haha.
You guys.
Hey, group.
Found a nest. Maybe this is the Parasite Clubhouse.
Don't congratulate him.
Dang it.
Well, I know what I'll be doing with my winnings. I'm saving up for our next stop on Contraxia to get one of those Zeronian massages.
You're so predictable. Exactly. You suck, Starshot. Let's see. When I beat Quill, I'm gonna get my hands on some rotating hyper circuits.
Boo! No one knows what those are. Ha! That one was juicy.
What do you think, Drax? Should we get in on this bet? Think of all the hyper circuits you could buy.
Are you making fun of me?
I do not wish to acquire hyper circuits.
I can hear them. I also.
I'm having the time of my life.
I am Groot.
Quill, shoot down a nest if you're having fun.
Splat!
And just so we're clear, Green Team is officially ineligible for the bet.
Why?
Well, for one, you need a gun.
No need for a projectile weapon.
He shoots! He scores!
Were I allowed to participate? I think I'd spend my bet earnings on a night at Liteco.
That's only if you manage to beat me.
Wait, isn't Liteco a fancy pants restaurant out on Vega?
I'm so sick of Yarrow.
I'm up 10. But it doesn't mean forever. I need to see if I can find more. It's still kind of here.
How's that bet going over there?
I am crushing this!
Just you wait. I'll be catching up in no time.
Damn, where's he seeing them? He can just randomly spot them. Wait. There we go.
Guys,
Okay.
status update.
Status update is I'm definitely gonna win.
Status update about the actual mission rocket.
See, like, where is he
We're
seeing
down to
them?
3 thumpers left.
It seems like he just gets
Just
one.
installed another one.
Make it 2.
Like, he gets a free one every now and again or something. Yeah, it sounds like it's over there. Freaking where?
Wonder how many big bot carcasses we'd find looking around the entire zone.
If it's a sentry you're looking at, we've seen at least 3 so far.
God dang it,
Or
just
at
letting it
least
fall
3
off.
pieces.
I assume the large arm belonged to the large torso. The colors did correspond.
You know what, Quill? I think it's unfair. You got 2 guns, I got 1. I think my points should count double from now on.
That's cheating!
All right, Thumper goes there, Quill.
It's not gonna piss off every critter around, right?
Sorry, Quill. Not taking no chances after the last one. I gotta test it real quick.
Not again. Rocket!
I only flipped the switch on and off to see if it started.
Yeah, tell them that!
Cluster flirt.
Gotta love that kill radius.
Jeez. The loose cannon. Rocket is a weapon expert who attacks from a distance. He focuses on damage multiple targets at the same time. His basic ability, Cluster Flirt Bomb, deals moderate damage to everything in the impact area. And he's my base.
Don't feel bad, buddy. They started it.
Light him up, Rocket! Darn it! I thought we were safe! Oh, come on! Now we gotta deal with jump slugs?
Don't gawk at it! Shoot him!
Very helpful, thanks!
You're welcome! Now stop distracting
Okay, kicking
me!
does nothing.
Oh yeah! I'm gonna murderize the lot of ya!
Our engineer at work.
Do we really need to test these things?
Yes, we're not taking any chances.
Easy for you to say! You've got a pointy stick! Take this!
And that!
Not a chance! I've gotten way more!
Jeez.
I eat bugs like you for breakfast!
I can't move.
Hey, you!
I'm happy to take this round
last
off!
time!
Okay, I want to try to kick it to death. It worked.
Nice splatter, Rocket!
I know, right? What was that worth? 5 points?
Oh, come on! You can't just give yourself points like that!
You received an ability point. Press the tab button.
Great
to
job.
use
We'll
it.
meet you at the mining ship.
Vantage point. Prolong jet boost. Keep unlocked. Wait, so their progress achievement? Ah, that's so lame. Self-improvement. Okay, so at least I got that one. Yeah, purchase first Star-Lord ability.
Peter Quill, the double agent is trying to lull me into a false sense of security.
Right. And the moment you drop your guard, I'll strike.
Aha! So you admit it?
I can hear your visor working. Better not be cheating on our bet,
Capable
Quill.
of near.
How can you
instantaneous
hear
boost.
that?
I thought
Of course
those were
there ain't
guns.
any plants here. It's a junkyard.
I am Groot.
All right, mining rig is right there.
I am Groot.
Of course it's secure. As secure as a broke-down Shatari shipwreck's ever gonna be.
I am Groot.
Come on, Groot. We need to get across here. And Rocket wouldn't put you at risk, right?
That's right. I've always got your back, bud. Nah, it just looks unstable like everything else in here. Don't get your twigs in a bundle. Yes, the resin can hold a stupid warship. I'm telling you, it's totally safe. See? I'll even prove it. Huh? Look at this.
Rocket?
Oh, fuck.
Guys, jump!
No! No! Ah!
Get him! Yeah.
Groot! Groot!
Eh, Groot will be fine. He's tough. Yeah, there's our boy.
Groot! Buddy, you're okay!
Fine. You flarkin' piece of moldy driftwood! You could have died saving me! I love you too, you selfless son of a chug. Come on, Quill. He says he'll meet us at the mining ship. I don't want to make him wait.
That's it? We're not going after him?
He says it's fine. We'll meet him later.
Team Rocket, is everything okay? Groot's signal just went dark.
His radio must have broke when he fell.
What happened to your timber companion?
He ain't Timber. He's alive.
Fell.
I really don't know
Aw,
if you're being
get
clever or
away.
dumb right now. Team Rocket out. Yeah. Sounds like Green Team's off our backs. Now we can stop worrying about that dumb accident. Groot's fine anyways. There's nothing to worry about.
An accident, Rocket? Come on!
What? That's all it was.
It's your fault! If you hadn't fooled around on that ship...
I did it. You don't know nothing. Stop trying to be smart.
That sure didn't sound like an apology.
Nope.
Shoot. Grab the edge. Oh.
Ah! Relax, Quill. This place is completely...
No, it's not! It's the opposite of whatever you were gonna say.
Hey, Gamora. Did you really chop up the Shatari Queen?
Man! If that afterburner kicked on right now, we'd be toast.
Let's hope it don't, because we have to find a way through this thing. Mining ship's on the other side of that turbine, so we gotta find a way through.
Try not to jump on anything this time. Groot's not there to grab you if you...
Well, either shut up or help me figure out how these blades open.
I just crawl through
I
here.
hear you scanning.
There's a drone access tunnel over here.
Too bad we don't got a drone.
Can you squeeze in there?
Knew it. Rocket, fix the thing. Rocket, clean up the mess. Rocket, crawl into the mystery hole.
See anything?
Yeah, a manual override.
Team Rocket, we hit a snag. One of our summer points was covered in resin, so we're gonna fly around and scout another spot.
Just make sure the new spot's as close as possible to the original one. Because of maps and angles.
Great. Another turbine.
Yeah, that is how these things are usually built. Clark! It's stuck on something!
Pew! Pew!
Someone's been practicing.
Come on, let's get out of here.
I will win the bet.
We're back on track. The mining ship ain't too far.
Think Groot's already ahead of us?
Maybe. Hope he didn't get distracted. I've been thinking about buying him a leash. He spots something shiny, and the next thing you know, he's on another.
Ah.
It wasn't me this time, I swear! I don't like this!
One for me!
I'm gripping this thing with muscles I didn't even know I had!
Oh!
Where is...
Ow! Larkin, son of a...
I saw that.
Great timing! How did you guys...
Good to see you two, but you're gonna want to cross the ship as fast as you can.
Okay.
We're seeing a lot of movement.
Yeah, Scott's getting real violent out here.
Just try to hold her still for us!
That's not gonna be an option soon.
This position is untenable.
Drax says hurry it up. Incoming! Watch out!
What?
Hang on!
I made it. Running. Run faster, Rocket.
I'm taking her out of here!
4 of those look like they went right through Rocket. Like, I hope he's okay.
Go!
Jeez.
Keep running!
Stop walking around, man!
Really?
Quill, this way!
Team Rocket! Can you make it inside?
Yeah, all in one piece.
Got it.
Can't see
Meet
nothing.
you in a tick.
No rush. It's nice and... Are you crazy, Quill? I'm right here. You're gonna kill someone, and that someone's gonna be me.
Sorry.
Come on. Flark and tensor joint. Just neat. Wiggle the... Okay, so life support's booting back up. What's it look like out there?
Holy mother of space butter.
Eat it, rodent. Achievement unlocked. Win the bet against Rocket. Haha! Is that the Soul Stone? That looks like the Soul Stone.
Quill, you okay?
Yeah, it's just... Man.
That thing.
Well, that's concerning.
Jesus, fire. Grab the Soul Stone, put it into a pocket, and let's run.
What was that?
It's a swarm of old cleaner bots. Maybe.
Old cleaner bots.
I don't know.
Maybe. Oh, poor Groot.
Groot! You okay, buddy?
Grab it. Put it in your pocket. Alright, fine.
Sorry about the shooting.
Yeah, thought you were that freaky thing we accidentally released.
We saw some cleaner bots. Accidentally. At a distance. We're totally alright. They just ran away when it saw us. Right, Quill?
Rocket, I'm not so sure that swarm thing was inoffensive. I feel kind of bad about releasing it.
Quill
Galaxy
took a pot
2014
shot at this
outfit.
massive worm nest. Chunk of something
can
fell off
change the
and a
outfit.
big floating
Oh, that's
creature
cool.
came out of it. That's all.
Whatever you have to tell yourself, little buddy. Please
Remember
don't
to
have
watch
to look
for
over there,
useful
so I can-
scrap. If you ain't got enough pockets, get creative.
Get
Now you're
creative.
talking. If only we could all grow pockets. Here you go. Rendezvous coordinates are that way. But we'll have to find a way around the rumble.
I'll try to find a side passage. Anyone else get a weird vibe off this place? Maybe it's haunted.
Haunted with what?
You know,
Here's a place I haven't been in a hot minute.
ghosts.
How you doing, man?
Please, Quill. Don't tell me you're one of those.
Oh, ghosts. Ah.
Hey, Quill! Groot says there might be something behind the big unit over here.
Okay. Else. Have you been, King Fu?
Look at this old beauty.
Nice.
A table. This is
A
a vintage
table.
Model T engineering workbench. They don't make them sturdy like that no more. Hey, come on, Quill. Let's see if this beauty still works. Maybe I can fix up your gear. Hey, hand me that part.
Pretty good. Trying the new Guardians game. Rockets help use a workbench to craft perks. Available perks are displayed when you activate it. Perk requires specific components to craft.
All right, you made your point.
Yeah, this really does feel like Mass Effect, but like if Marvel wanted to make a Mass Effect-like game. In a good way. Like, I really like this. Okay, rapid reload sounds good.
Got you covered.
Tracked enemy drops from 15 meters away. Okay.
Doing, done.
Glide around target for a short time while shooting. Tactical scan enemies during combat with the visor. Knockdown dash. Avoid falling prone by dashing when hit with a knockdown blow. Probably just... Thanks, Rocket.
Yeah, there's a way through if we can clear out that crud.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Hey, Starscut. I hope you appreciate me more after all that.
Of course I do. Rapid reload allows you to cancel your element's gun cooldown and deal extra damage. Firing repeatedly causes overheating. Upon overheating, green zone appear on the cooldown gauge. Tap your shoot button with the marker in the zone to cancel the overheat.
Come on, Quill. Put them pea shooters to good use so we can squeeze in there.
Oh yeah! Nailed it! And thanks for the upgrade.
All right, let's squeeze our way out of here.
Now it'll be like Gears of
that
War where I
thing we
never
set
have to
What thing?
not
I didn't
have
see a
good
thing.
reloads.
Definitely don't want to talk about no thing.
Seems a little wobbly. You guys hang back a sec.
Talkie mushrooms. What is that thing?
This place is crawling with ugly.
Don't touch me.
You're not alone down here.
Ah.
We'll look for a way around.
Holy crap!
Ah, there's more of them.
This is the most punchable thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it seems like punching does the most damage.
Right in the face.
It's like when you fight your little brother.
Rocket, you really missed out. That was amazing.
Team Rocket! Finally. We couldn't hear you before. Something about the mining ship's been messing up our comms.
Yeah, something really ain't right in here. And Quill fell down another hole.
Another one. I'm parking the Milano, but Drax is out there searching for you.
Maybe you'll find Quill before we do. We're trying to catch up to him.
Guys,
Oh,
we
wait, what?
really need to get better at the buddy system.
He is
Oh,
not my buddy. I will find you, Peter Quill. Describe yourself.
nice. Alright, I like that.
Old metal, old mining equipment, just old.
Noted.
It's all old down here. Alright, let's see.
You two have any left?
Okay, that seems
It
like
is
the way
not
I'm
a
supposed to
question
go.
of luck.
Peter, make some noise so we can find you.
Drax! Drax!
Hey, you want to mute
Oh, I
your
missed
comms
it.
if you're gonna scream your lungs out?
There we go. What you got? That's for Rocket,
I
eh?
wonder if Rocket knows what this is.
Free stuff. New Guardian collectible found. You found a spinal control unit. Rocket might have
A
use.
weird bunch of
Might
stuff
have
to
something
mine.
interesting to
What
say
was
about
it?
I don't know. Weird cubey hunks of rock or metal.
It is weird looking. But that's what makes it fun. Alright. Let's go right. Oh wait.
Peter Quill, I have located some old equipment, but I do not see you.
This whole place is old equipment.
It does not narrow my search.
What the heck are you?
Another freaky thing!
How freaky? Kill it!
You read my mind.
I forgot to reload.
This thing refuses to die. I can barely scratch it.
Kill it harder!
I'm killing it as hard as I can.
Oh, that's how I do that. Okay. Stagger bar. Their stagger bar is always placed below the health bar, filling it completely will momentarily cripple them.
It's like this thing eats blaster fire. Really use a tanky.
Peter Quill, hide behind me! I will protect you!
No one's hiding. Drax, sack him!
So mad. Drax the Destroyer. Drax is a durable brawler, able to take on many enemies at once. He specializes in staggering enemies and impervious to regular attacks. His basic ability Destroy deals light damage and heavy stagger. Well,
Here's our chance!
Any clue how I find you?
Went for the big guy! The other big guy! You sure did.
Save some for me.
Not gonna be a problem. Punch him up!
I like it just like comes out of nowhere to mess him up. Where you
My
at?
turn.
And
Run him through!
Cut to the chase.
damn.
I just love hearing their shells crack.
Get it. Gamora, the deadliest woman in the galaxy. Gamora is a skilled assassin who swiftly eliminates targets. She delivers quick, high damage attacks. Her basic ability, Deadly Strike, deals heavy damage to a single enemy. Cool.
You greenies found Quill yet?
Found and saved.
Hey,
Go on ahead then. We'll catch up. Just making a pit stop.
I parked the Milano near the last thumper spot. We'll head that way and keep an eye out for you.
how's my baby?
You can see for yourself if you can get back up there. I could make it up there, but we're gonna need something for you two to climb up on.
It is a wonder the nimble assassin has not abandoned us already.
Drax.
At least he called me nimble.
It was not intended as a compliment.
Gamora can cut certain objects.
Anyone got
Oh,
any
gotcha.
bright ideas? If we can get this thing
Heavy
down,
object.
it should
Dense
give us the
object
extra
of
height we
exceptional
need.
mass, requires phenomenal strength to move. Interactive brittle material, foreign.
All right, pretty sure that baby's our ticket upward. Somehow.
It's a possibility. Maybe try something else.
Ask more to cut the cable. Thought I did that. There we go.
Let's see that fancy footwork, Gamora.
Bet you can't do this.
Dang, that was
Impossible.
cool. This is the big goof. Trying to push it with me
Drax,
on it.
think you can heft that container?
Behold the might of a Catathian warrior!
How did I do it? Oh, I have to move. Okay. Holy crap, dude!
Remember this moment should you ever think of crossing me, assassin.
I'll remember how slowly you moved.
All right, Rocket, we're back on track.
Oh, yeah, good for you. It ain't stealing if it's abandoned. Oh, Flark.
Rocket.
Not now,
It's
Quill.
them. It's the Nova Corps. Well, probably is. Alright, let's get over here.
Rocket.
Perhaps he has located our monster.
We don't even know what it looks like. The intel was extremely vague.
It wasn't vague, it was rushed. It's probably some cute little...
Nightmarish abomination.
Yeah.
Lady Hellbender is a renowned warrior. An ideal specimen to reflect that strength.
Like I said, something scary.
I disagree. Strength is endearing.
That's
My
scary.
little Camaria and her mother Hovat were two of the strongest people who ever lived.
With a name like Hellbender, Gamora's probably right. It's gotta be something scary.
Nightmarish. A proper apex predator.
Snarling and nasty. More teeth than all of us combined. Bat-like wings with razor tips. Probably spits poison or acid.
Or acidic poison.
I hope all these are true. I yearn for a worthy challenge.
Alright, a miracle! Ink Stixum. After the Chitauri destroyed our outpost, we journeyed for 15 rotations to reach the healer. Every night was harder than the next, as Jixum's breathing worsened. We could find nothing medically wrong with him. The Chitauri assault had damaged his mind, and he was simply giving up. After he led us through so many battles, we weren't about to let him go out this way. We found his church aboard one of his converted mining ships. The line was long, but the excitement was palpable. Each time we advanced, we would hear screams of joy at the front of the crowd. When it was our turn, we approached this gold-skinned miracle worker. I do not have the proper vocabulary to describe him, but it is the closest we've ever been to divinity. The healer pressed his hands against Jixum's forehead and whispered to him. Our friend's eyes widened, and he took a deep breath for the first time since he had fell in battle. Oxo be praised, he was healed. Jixum has been distant on our return trip. We believe he is simply dealing with his near-death experience. We hope he will be himself once again soon. It sounds like those people from the Empire, the gold people. They're pretty cool.
Hunting this thing kinda reminds me of this time when my hamster got loose and I chased her all over the basement.
Was she a fearsome beast?
Yeah, she had a mean bite. Did you guys have pets?
I had an eyeball in a jar. It never blinked because it had violence, but it always looked like it wanted to.
Okay, moving on to Drax.
I would much rather discuss the eyeball.
It was one of a set. My sister had the other.
Oh, come on!
Alright, so is this the way I'm supposed to go? Probably. Let's go this way. I could probably make that. Yeah.
You guys notice anything weird about this place?
You mean besides the comms going dead for no reason?
There was a reason. You collided with that column of scrap.
You what?
I was dodging a hailstorm of flaming debris. And the comms went out before that.
That is true. No! I didn't think about that! Ow, okay,
Once we
this fall
deliver her
damage.
prize, Lady Hellbender could become an influential ally.
How so?
They say that the mere mention of her name can end a negotiation.
You want to turn the Guardians of the Galaxy into an extortion racket?
No. I want people to offer us bigger tasks because they fear her wrath.
Same thing, Drax.
Whoa!
Well, you got some timing. We got company.
Now to use everything I've
Is this
learned.
from the last thumper?
We haven't even.
They are food for our quarry and will not be far behind.
Let's just focus on not becoming food ourselves!
We need to regroup!
Ow.
You're right! This isn't working! Look! It's like we woke up the whole ship! Just hang in there!
The huddle. When your huddle gauge is full, with R actions perform in battle, build up the huddle gauge. When filled, call a huddle to reset the odds.
Guys, huddle up!
It feels like they're everywhere, laughing at us.
And yet, we cannot
The
retreat.
Guardians.
No one wants to retreat,
Choose
big
speech
guy,
that
but I
best
gotta say,
refocuses
it's fucking scary
or
out there,
choosing.
Quill.
Laugh in the face of danger.
Clarknard's on the field, danger on all sides. Then it's time we stand and face it, and make sure they're nullified. Are we heroes to be laughed at? No! I'll laugh at them instead. Who's with me?
Wise words, Peter
Can't
Quill.
wait to take him down!
You say.
Yeah. Both you and the Guardians get a damage boost. Had you chosen wrong, only you would have gotten it. Win, lose, or say nothing, all the Guardians are resurrected.
I will destroy you all! You got this, big guy! I think we knocked it out! Now's our chance! One last gross flaily thing!
That thing was freaking nasty!
Drax! Shut him down! Branch out, Groot! Smoke him! I told you we could do this!
Your magical words have fueled my muscles.
Hot knife! Crash dead! Going to kill something else!
Watch where you swim pounds, Drax! Let's kick this Astro Lobster while it's down!
It will regret this moment of weakness!
This is more like it.
I went right past the thing.
Team. Now's your chance, Gamora! Blow them away,
Enjoy
Rocket!
this.
We ain't such a bad team after all.
Well said! Glorious! Bring on our monster! I am engorged with the thrum of battle.
Didn't need to hear that.
How do you know?
My senses are fine-tuned. to
Grody.
measure even the tiniest vibrations.
Really?
No, I'm tracking it on my display.
Install.
The Milano should be right on the other side of this door. It was open when I came through here.
Local network interface.
Who says I tripped on something? Murder
Nice
Mom
video,
probably
girl.
closed the door behind her.
Excuse me?
Murder Mom.
It looks like it's still got some juice. Give it a go, Rocket.
Watch a genius at work.
You are a miracle.
So far, this
worker,
game is
man.
pretty sweet.
This tech was built by people who make holes
And a nice
in
and
giant
easy
floating
tutorial.
space rocks.
Nice.
I have to say, that is an immaculate parking job.
Thanos never tolerated imperfection.
Yeah, let me see the parking job
yeah.
real quick. It looks pretty decent.
This is it. Last spot.
Can't wait to be out of here. This place feels like it's about
I like
to
that he
collapse
just
on
slams it
itself.
down.
I cannot wait to meet our monster.
I thought you were mostly interested in meeting the buyer.
She is a respectable collector.
Is it working?
Yeah, don't worry, Sunshine.
Ow! Is it, doing it?
What?
It appears to be broken!
Ain't nothing broke. That's the sound it's supposed to make.
Yeah,
what
it's really
sounds?
annoying.
You can't
Bob.
hear that.
Hear what?
Okay, there we go.
Our monster has arrived!
I see it.
Good. Oh, crap, the door,
Alright, cool. I was just thinking that.
works. Let's catch our monster. Man, that thing is fast!
Don't let it get behind you. It could be poisonous.
Lady Hellbender will pay extra if it is poisonous.
Roots and dispose.
Hollow! That thing
One less thing
stinks!
to hide behind.
Good thinking, Will. I think it's playing with us.
Could be a trap.
Ah, I wasn't ready for it to reload.
It's got nowhere left to hide.
But it can still run. Gotta be some way to slow it down.
Wrap him up, bud!
Llama Wrangler achievement unlocked. Capture the quarantine zone monster. Ah, it's so
What
cute.
the flark is that?
A llama.
Not a monster.
Adorable. It's more matted than an Asgardian goat.
We cannot present
It's
this pathetic
Guardian.
creature to the monster queen of Seknarf 9. She will laugh at us.
Maybe we can use it as bait.
I knew those thumpers wouldn't work.
What? My thumpers are state of the
I
art.
think it's a different
Musclehead's
creature
the one who
that's
rushed
actually
at the
the one.
first thing that came through the door.
My head is not made of muscle.
Yeah.
You guys seeing what I'm seeing?
That's a thing.
Yes. That is a monster.
Can't do. Look at its eye holes.
All right. Enough with the warm-up. Time to catch us a real monster. Let's get paid.
Hey, that thing.
What in hell's name is that?
Definitely not cleaner bots.
Watch it!
The whole place is crapping out. We gotta get out of here, now!
Curse these volatile ruins!
Drax, go!
If I bulk up a little more, I feel like I could actually cosplay as
Hold on to
Drax.
your
That would be
butts, people! Rocket, hit the music!
On it!
Focus on flying, Peter.
I like the
Someone
flying.
play
too,
this man a
it's
song!
Now we're talking!
Watch the ship!
I'm watching!
You ain't! Drax, what are you doing?
cool.
I am holding my buttocks as Peter Quill instructed.
Watch it!
Someone give me a hand! Am I right?
How about one upside the head? Heads up!
Where's the
We have
music?
debris incoming! Blow it away, Quill!
Let's try that. Oh no, I hear this.
Time to thread the needle!
Don't even think about it!
Quickest way through is through!
Peter!
You fear dying with a guilty conscience, assassin.
Don't you get goo on my ship!
My shit!
Oh, that's it. Let me drive. You're gonna get us killed.
We're not dead yet.
Maybe we are, and this is hell.
Do not be ridiculous. This place lacks the eternal frost of Sardu.
Your hell is frozen?
Catathians do not like to be cold.
Try putting on a shirt.
See? Piece of...
Groot says watch out!
Yeah, thanks for the heads up!
Good music.
You want me
I was
to
gonna
take
shoot
the
it.
control?
No, I've got this!
Clearly!
Watch it!
Not killing the mine. There we go.
There's still so much stuff I want to steal. We ain't gonna make it. Hit the blue button!
What blue button?
The one for the secret boosters I added!
Can you please stop adding things while I'm asleep?
Punch it, Peter!
Now is not the time for hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
Whoa! Fuck yeah!
Alright, I'm gonna bump the audio down a little bit more on the sound effects.
Definitely a fan of the blue button.
Good Scott on all sides. We ain't gonna make it!
Or make it! Maybe!
There's the exit!
See? Home stretch!
Your last breath!
Yeah! And that's what I call a win, people.
How's that a win? Our monster
We didn't
just
get the
got
monster.
eaten.
Whatever you can fly away from.
Means you screwed up because you had to fly away from it.
Something bad about that. I can sense it. Not to mention the
Please
music.
don't be Nova Corps. Please don't be Nova Corps.
Risky
Please don't be Nova
gamble.
Corps.
Achievement unlocked.
It is
Complete chapter 1.
Nova Corps.
Oh no. Marvelous Guardians of the Galaxy. Can I, without skipping it? Okay. I'm gonna bump the music up slightly because I noticed that the music is way low. Like 70.
That's a patrol ship. Designation, Hallis Hope.
Did you say Hallis Hope?
Busted.
There's this thing I gotta do. I'll be right back.
It's gonna get a really big
We need
gun.
to get rid of that
or
animal.
something.
Now. I'm serious, Peter. If it stays on the ship, we all go to prison.
No one's going to jail. It's a harmless space llama thingy.
Harmless? Remember Inakubi?
Not really, no.
That's because they scorched the planet because an idiot smuggled in an Exelon.
I will eject the beast into space.
Whoa, 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 we're not ejecting anything. It'll make us look guilty.
It could be carrying Zephron's disease.
Which is why Drax is gonna hide in the secret cargo compartment behind Groot's plants.
Peter, Jason, Quill.
Oh god, you know my
Middle
name.
name. Hey, Corell! How you doing? How long's it been? 2-3 years? You look good. You been tanning?
This is a new low, Peter. Even for you.
Corell, I swear it's not what it looks like.
That you're a junker trespassing in the most restricted area of space?
You can check
Who
Burns
consorts
Dark
with
Dolphin.
thieves and murderers, apparently.
Hey, killing people for money ain't murder, lady.
Come on, Corell. You know me. We've been to hell and back. Sure, I've done some shady stuff since the war, like really shady stuff. But junking?
I just
I would
caught you
never jump.
pink-handed, leaving the quarantine zone.
Technically, yes, but we weren't scavenging.
Right.
Peter Quill. I found these items in the space that you told me about. There was not enough room for both the other thing and these.
Peter Quill, of planet C-53, under Galactic Law ZXP-47, I am putting you and your crew under arrest for
Actually, can I call you back?
What?
Please
What?
tell me that is not a crate of super illegal tech.
It is a crate of super illegal tech, which also happens to be very valuable.
Really?
What? We're on a Ravager ship. Even the Flarkin bulkheads are stolen.
Well, we can't fit both in the compartment.
I will eject the crate into space.
Eject the crate and I melt your face! Milano's weapon systems are 4 generations behind, Quill. We need that tech, more than we need some stupid farm animal.
That farm animal could be a Class 3 biohazard. You want to end up in the kiln?
Hide the tech.
Hide Rocket's crate.
Peter, you're willing to gamble on a space llama thingy?
I'll convince Corell the llama's harmless. She knows me.
And I know Corell.
Not like I did.
You slept with a cop?
She wasn't a cop back then. The point is, I can get us out of this, guys. You just gotta trust me.
I am Groot.
Oh, and that would be your boarding party.
Alice Hope, Nova Corps, Star Frigate, currently patrolling the quarantine zone.
Just speak to Centurion Corell.
Silence, prisoner. Peter has no time to meet with law-breaking pirates like you.
That's just it. We're not pirates. We're legally incorporated heroes for hire.
Yeah, that's right. You check those records, Buckethead. Nova Corps licensing permit 67398-2.
Gardeners of the Galaxy?
What? No. Rocket.
So
He
I
can't
let
spell
Groot
for
fill
shit.
out the paperwork. I fixed it with an addendum.
Not the most well-known heroes you could hire, but definitely in the top 5 of most awesome names. Contributing members. Groot, a Flora Colossus, last of his kind, fearless in a firefight, an awesome best friend.
Aw.
Rocket, bona fide super genius and a wizard with explosives. Definitely not a raccoon. Gamora, adopted daughter of Thanos, deadliest woman in the galaxy. Need we say more? Drax the Destroyer, convicted serial murderer and galactic war hero, often grumpy. Last and definitely least, Peter Jason Quill.
Nobody cares.
That's all you wrote?
It was a character limitation.
Sorry, excuse me, I just need to...
Cadet Gold, what are you doing here?
Oh, you don't know? Really? It says right here. Prisoner processing training.
Really, she's
I'm your
pretty.
official trainee.
Aren't you a little young for the Corps?
Aren't you a little old for that hairdo?
Damn.
I should check with the captain.
No. No. She definitely signed off on this. You know how thorough she is about signing stuff? And if I may, sir, the real concern here is Regulation 7A regarding prisoner footgear. That one's jet boots are in clear violation.
They're decorative.
Good work, Cadet Gold.
Great. There goes Plan B.
We don't need a plan B. I got this.
No, you do not got this, pirate. I got this. Now fall in line.
Time to go, prisoners.
Ow.
Watch the jacket.
Cadet Gold, you know the arrest protocols?
All memorized, sir. First thing we do.
First thing you do is apologize. We're legitimate business-like folk on legitimate-like business.
We're not hunting an illegal creature in illegal space. Illegal.
Stop helping.
There's so much wrong with this arrest. A, no way a kid should be here.
I'm an official trainee.
And B, I'm very, very close friends with the captain.
Hold it right
Who's the
here.
old man?
Is there a problem?
Yes, no faith energy, no power. No power, no containment.
Containment of what?
Techs are looking at it. They say that.
They cannot even fathom. How can they fix what they cannot understand?
Put the Grand Unifier's mind at ease. Run the scanners again.
What the flark is a Grand Unifier?
Grand Unifier Raker, leader of the Church of Universal something. He was floating dead in the quarantine zone, looking for God.
All right, pirates, let's go.
We caught him just like we caught you.
Difference is, I know the captain. As I was saying, if you just tell the captain that I...
Mom explicitly said she doesn't want to see you.
Yeah.
Mom.
Will.
Wait.
Maybe that's your kid.
Did you say mom?
Admit it that you know nothing. And let me...
Just to be
No!
super clear
You
on the
mustn't
mom
touch
thing.
Wait.
Hold on! Quill! Hold on to something, Quill! No!
Where's the kid?
Hey, kiddo, you there? Nova girl!
Yeah, I think so. Let me just see if I can...
Hold up, I say! That's my jet boots! That gold, was it?
Nikki?
Oh, it's nice to meet you, Nikki. Okay, Nikki, here's the plan. You're gonna jump and grab my legs while I hold on for dear life.
That doesn't sound like...
Trust me, kiddo. We got this. See? This isn't weird at all. Doing great.
Okay. That was kind of amazing, huh?
Whoa! Thanks.
Mom wouldn't be impressed if I lost my first prisoner.
Your mom, right?
Come on. We need to get out of here.
She kind of looks like a vault dweller from
There's a glass door
Fallout
around
because
the
of the
corner.
way that
We'll
her
be
stuff
safe
looks.
there. Here. Help me with this. Ready?
Together. On 3, 2, 1. Go! Go! Yeah! Okay.
We need to keep moving. This way.
Cadet Nikki? Just stay close.
I knew there was something wrong about that church. Who goes fishing for God in a junkyard?
Oh man, this is bad.
Fishing for
Glass
God.
doors
in a
kick in
junkyard.
during emergencies. Pretty sure I can override them with my passkey.
They give out override keys to trainees?
Not exactly. Just give me a
My
sec.
kind of person.
Come on, come on.
You know, I could probably help with the door if we undid these cuffs.
Regulation 3B. Never undo restraints.
Okay, you know what? Good
You
one.
clearly need my help.
No! You're my prisoner, and I got this.
Obviously.
Ah! Okay, we're gonna have to find another way.
We sure there isn't a way through here?
I'm in charge here. As senior officer, I...
Whoa! You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. You?
Oh, dandy.
Okay, this way.
I knew it should have did the jet
Going up?
boots.
Back toward the others?
There's another blast door down here.
We step... Are you kidding me?
Relax, you're fine. Ish.
I mentioned how useful my jet boots would be right now.
Okay, I can do this.
Not to rush you or anything.
Almost there. Can you please stop squirming? I'm trying to focus.
Okay, okay.
Not really squirming, I'm just standing here.
Yes! Got it! Through here.
Whew. Nice work.
Thanks. You didn't do too bad yourself, pirate.
Homie Star-Lord. Or Peter, or, you know, Nova Cadet Butt Saver.
Okay. Peter. So, listen. I have some good news and some bad news about your friends.
Okay. Bad news.
Start with the bad, I guess.
Your friends have been processed and put in the brig.
So what's the good news?
They're not dead. One of them actually seems really active.
That's probably Rocket.
Come on. We'll be safe through here. Flark! Pipes must have burst.
You cuss a lot, little lady.
Should we try using that thingamajig of yours to call someone?
We don't need help. I know what I'm doing. Now help me block this fire so we can get through.
Sure. Just that everyone must be worried. Captain's kid goes missing.
Captain's kid is still a corpsman. Now are you gonna help me or not?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
coming, I'm coming.
Easy does it.
There,
Hurry up
see?
before it slags and explodes.
You don't need to worry about me. Enough people around here do that already.
For what it's worth, I think you're doing great. As good an arresting officer as I've ever had.
How many of you had?
Not that many. Is that robot wearing makeup?
What?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's just it's. I know all the bots down here. They're kind of my friends, I guess. I reprogrammed most of them.
And gave them faces.
Maybe.
No, I mean it's cool. Gives them personality. Very cool.
Come on, this way.
Does your mom know you play down here?
Probably not. But what else am I gonna do? Not like there's any other kids on board.
You know, I didn't have a lot of friends at your age either. Granted, I was in prison, but still.
So Mom was right about you.
It was a Shatari prison. I was just a kid.
I have so many questions. Were your parents in prison too?
No, my mom, died. I didn't know my dad.
So I noticed that the Nova Corps symbol is very similar to the flame symbol. Is he wearing one of the Ravagers?
So what are these, like maintenance tunnels or something?
I prefer to think of them as secret passageways. This part of the ship doesn't get much traffic. Ready?
Okay, you'd think this would get easier. This override key you keep using.
How do you know my mom, exactly?
We fought together on Mercury during the war. She was, is a real spitfire.
More like real controlling. And bossy and judgmental. You're just a kid, Nikki. You don't know what's good for you, Nikki. Stay out of the escape pods, Nikki.
I kinda know what you mean.
You do?
This is a new low, Peter. Even for you, Peter. It's restricted space, Peter.
Yep, that's her. Okay.
So I wonder
Almost
if
there.
like the
where?
Ravagers
You'll
like
see.
an offshoot of the Nova Corps, where it's like they kind of gave up being the nice guys about it
Where do you
and
think
started
you're going?
solving problems
Just making sure
by
this place is safe and secure from the, you know, fire.
they started being like you know, more like vigilante justice within the law,
Any
like bounty
day
hunters and
now.
whatnot, whatever
Right,
makes
right.
the money,
Just taking it all in.
instead of just being cops.
Yeah, could you please try to keep up?
Hey, you try walking around in cuffs.
It's a dead end. Trust me.
Of course I trust you.
Clearly.
This another one of your bots?
Yeah, her name's Joe Castown. She keeps an eye out for stuff. Invaders, trespassers, prisoners who keep wandering off.
I actually think this is faster than walking.
If this is an attempt to escape your mom's ship, I really need to know, because I may or may not be super interested. Just really need to make sure it doesn't look like a kidnapping.
What? No, no. Just promise you won't tell anyone about this place.
Oh, wow.
Don't
That's
laugh.
cool.
No, no. This is cool. It's like your secret hideout, right? I definitely prefer this to the brig.
We're not staying. I just need to check on Ultimo. His gyros
Had a feeling
are all
something was here.
screwy.
Take your time. Is this your mom? Single-handedly winning the war?
Obviously, I know she didn't do it by herself.
No. That final push was,
Kind of reminds
a
me of
massive
Captain
team
Marvel.
effort.
Were you there?
I contributed to the war effort differently.
Pirating?
Raiding, which is, you know, the good kind of pirating. A universal translator. Wonder if it speaks Groot. Is this Krelar?
Yeah. Long time ago. Kid stuff. I could do it way better now.
No, no, it's good. Morbid, but good. Hey, this is Mercury, right?
Uh-huh. It's supposed to represent this big battle Mom was part of. You said you were there, right?
Oh, yeah. Your mom was dead in the water until me and the Ravagers showed up. You should really fix this.
You want me to draw you in?
In the interest of historical accuracy. Something tells me you and Rocket would get along. Or really, really not get along. One of those two.
The raccoon thing? Yeah. He seemed real charming.
I just mean he's also really into all this tech stuff.
I like that there's lots of stuff to interact with. Like, that's kind of fun.
Hey! Secret stuff. Off limits.
No adults. I get it.
Anyway, I'm all done here. We should probably get back before Mom completely freaks.
Yeah, I've seen your mom overreact before.
It's like, I'm not a kid anymore, you know?
Tell me about it.
So, you get where I'm coming from, right? Like, if you do end up talking to my mom, the subject of me happens to come up. Because the truth is, I wasn't exactly supposed to, in a, like strictly technical sense.
It didn't,
What I'm saying
didn't take
is,
that I pushed the
I
button.
may have bluffed my way into that whole trainee thing. Almost at the elevator. We're home free. Ah! Almost there. Seriously? Just give me a sec.
Need a hand?
Yes! Got it! Mom? I can explain.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's Kree. If I remember correct.
Nikki.
I'm fine. Mom, seriously. A-okay. Barely a scratch.
What in Hala's name were you thinking? Sneaking out with an arresting squad? Running around with criminals?
Alleged criminals?
You almost died. Do you have any idea how grounded you are right now?
Mom! You promised to give me more leeway.
Leeway doesn't mean lying to my officers. Or sneaking around behind my back.
Look, it's my fault some guy's ship blew up.
Restricted areas are restricted for a reason.
You treat me like a prisoner.
You're a child! Are you even listening?
Whoa, whoa. We've all been through a lot today. Let's just all take a deep breath and recognize that maybe we've all made some mistakes.
Make sure the fire is out and the hangar secure.
Yes, Commander.
And find out why that Churchman shuttle exploded.
Grand Unifier Raker has been less than cooperative.
Make him cooperate. And you two? With me.
Cool. I like her armor. It looks really cool. Like the dude's armor is, like the other people around
I
her.
knew you'd overreact.
Their armor looked
you
cool too.
always overreact. Even Peter was
It
saying
reminds
so.
me
Oh,
of
he
Spartan
was,
armor.
was he? I suspect Peter misspoke, something he often tends to do.
For what it's worth, Nikki totally saved my butt. She handled herself really well. You have every reason to be proud of her.
Coming from you, Peter, it's worth extraordinarily little.
Why are you being mean to him? Just listen to what he's saying.
I don't care what he's saying.
Upper level. Captain's quarters.
Fine. Initiate lockdown.
Lockdown initiated.
What, are you gonna kill us?
In theory, these doors don't open until I say so.
Yeah, I know how lockdown works.
I don't think you do, because somehow you keep bypassing every security measure on this ship, and I want to know how. Or you can just show me.
Mom! I seriously have no idea what you're talking about.
Initiate not lockdown. All good for systems go. Activate.
Voice print not authorized.
Just trying to help.
We don't need your help. You're the last person we need help from.
Well, you clearly need some form of help if you're trapping us in an elevator.
No one leaves until you tell me what I want to know.
You already know everything.
No, I don't. I know you're a magnet for danger, and that you somehow keep getting caught in restricted areas of this ship.
I'm small. Okay? I fit into places.
Being small doesn't get you past security, or through the hangar bay checkpoint, or the
That's
maintenance
some
tunnel
more
blast
details.
doors, or even into the sub-level I just found you in.
There was that system-wide glitch, remember?
Yeah. Yeah, security was down for a while.
No, it wasn't.
Seemed pretty down to me.
Are you seriously lying for a 12-year-old right now?
12? Oh wow, I thought she was at least 16.
Peter!
What? She really knew her stuff. She's a smart kid.
Too smart. She keeps bypassing security. Unless you have a level 6 access to my ship all of a sudden? Didn't think so. Nicolette Gold, empty your pockets.
No. You empty your pockets.
Nikki?
What?
I know you're hiding something.
It was me. Yeah, all those locked doors back there, I hacked them.
You hacked them?
Yeah, I'm a hacker now. I hack stuff. You know, beep bop boop, boop boop beep.
You're enough to give you her passkey. Oh, cool.
That doesn't explain the falsified orders.
I don't know what to tell you, Mom. Your security staff have been sleeping on the job. All I know is I'm not hiding anything. I wouldn't do that.
To be continued. Disengage lockdown.
So, can I go help secure the hangar now?
No, you can go back to your quarters and you can stay there for the next 30 rotations.
But Mom!
I can make it 30 cycles.
Damn. How long's the rotation though? Is that Earth time where it's, 24 hours? Or is that like, what, Jupiter or Saturn? Or it's way longer?
So, rough day, huh? Exploding shuttles, quarantine zone trespassers, missing kid.
I have no idea.
Chewie. I can't believe you still have them. Can't believe you survived. Mercury was what, like 1,000 degrees?
More like 1,000 cycles ago. You can keep him if you want. He is yours.
Hey, I ordered him to look out for you. Expect him to keep doing his job. Especially, you now have a daughter, apparently.
I think he's 12. We met 12 years
12-year-old
ago.
daughter, who you didn't have during the war. 12 years ago when we...
Peter. When we picked up your ship, part of me was excited. At first. But then after all this time, you haven't changed. At all. You're still the same...
I've changed. Whatever the fine is, I'll pay. Just give me 3 cycles. Let me prove that I'm not still... whatever it is you're gonna finish that sentence with.
You're gonna pay 8,000 units?
Holy
in 3
crap.
cycles.
Wow, okay, that is a lot of money. I was thinking that maybe...
The fine's non-negotiable. My search party found a Class 2
98,000
biohazard
for
wandering
trespassing.
around your ship.
And for smuggling.
That's all they found, right? Okay. You'll get your money on time, no problem. This Guardians of the Galaxy thing, we are this close to getting it off the ground. And if I didn't have these handcuffs on, I would show you just how very close we are.
Why do I feel like I'll regret this?
Oh, come on. When have I ever... You won't regret it. Promise.
Good music. Ah.
You've got 3 cycles, Peter. Not 4, not 5, 3. Contact me when you've got the unit.
And if we don't?
The device we installed will deactivate your ship, and you will all go to prison.
Gotcha. We won't let you down.
Roger Dodger. Time to go find some money.
What the hell, Peter? You said you could get us out of this.
I did. 8,000 units is a small price.
8,000 units?
That is a tremendous sum.
Where are we gonna get that kind of money in 3 cycles?
By robbing a freaking bank, apparently.
Okay. So we got fined. So we have a Nova tracking thing on our ship that's gonna shut down our engines if we don't pay that fine in 3 cycles. At least we're not on a prisoner transport.
Not yet.
Come on, guys. You're Drax the Destroyer, man. You killed Thanos.
Allegedly.
Are you gonna let a little fine slow you down? And Gamora, you're practically an MI6 agent, but way hotter and cooler.
I didn't realize
There's
that
nothing
Drax
you can't
killed
do.
Thanos in the comic.
Rocky, you're an actual genius and the scrappiest dude I know. How many prisons did you break out of?
7.
You are Groot. Guys, we're supposed to be a team. All we need to do is figure out how broke we are and come up with a plan. So check your quarters. Check between the sofa cushions. Check under the crafting bench. If you find any spare units lying around, grab them. I'll do the same in my quarters.
All right.
This is why you don't sleep with cops, Quill. They put bombs on my ship.
My ship.
Busted achievement unlocked. Complete chapter 2.
I am watching you, rodent.
What's that supposed to mean?
It is common knowledge that rodents hoard nuts, stolen technology, units.
Okay, first off, I ain't a hoarder nor a rodent.
I know you have a stash hidden aboard this ship. Fetch it, now.
There ain't
Looks like a
nothing to
comfy chair.
fetch. Groot blew our stash on Contraxia, and the rest I gave to Quill and Gamora for the DAS quarantine zone access code.
A likely story.
Why don't you go bother someone else?
I intend to.
Built this city on rock and roll.
Open this door! I know you are in there, sentient tree!
So are you?
You cannot hide behind this door forever!
Drax, let it go! Nobody's stashing units!
We shall see!
Thanks for telling him. So, you here to talk, or you just want a gear upgrade?
Check in.
You're not still upset, are you?
It'd be a lot better if we didn't have 3 cycles to pay a fine.
Hey, remember that time on Conlar? With the Badoon and that really hot Ascavarian girl?
Yeah, her buddies would have spaced your stupid Hume butt if me and Groot hadn't busted in.
I had things under control, mostly.
Ha! Too bad you're broke, Quill. I should be charging you for all the times we saved you.
Name one other time you saved me.
Contraxia, Nowhere, Paramitar, Ceres, Contraxia again, Malador...
Okay, so I owe you. Big.
I should have turned you in for Yondu's bounty. Sure as Scott wouldn't be scrounging for units to pay off your Nova girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend. But admit it, you like being a Guardian of the Galaxy.
Still on the fence about the brand name, but keeping the Milano as collateral was a pretty smart move.
Never agreed to that.
If you'd rather, I'd turn you in.
Don't worry. I know you put a lot into this team. I'll make it up to you.
You better.
Oop. Hey, again?
Guys, don't forget to close the fridge.
Sure thing, Mom Lord.
Peter Quill, order the tree to open this door. I am certain that the rodent has hidden a stash of units within the latrine. He must have asked his well-meaning accomplice to retrieve the sum and hide it from us.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Groot has the right to some privacy.
Ah, now is not the time for pointless civility.
Groot, you okay in there? Think you could open the door for a minute? Is that my toothbrush? Great. Now I need a new toothbrush.
I like that he's laughing about it. I forget if I
Any
had
units
something.
I uncover will go directly to you, but I am unsure the others will do the same.
So, you're taking the whole find the units thing pretty seriously.
It is a serious matter.
Yeah, I totally get it. We're all afraid of going back to prison.
I am not afraid of going back to prison.
Oh, good. Because I'm not either, mostly.
In the kiln, I was surrounded by criminals, murderers, and thieves. They taught me a harsh lesson. Assassins and bounty hunters cannot be trusted.
Okay. Wow. Don't you think maybe you're calling the kettle black?
I have not mentioned kitchenware.
It's an Earth thing. What I mean is, you're a convicted mass murderer. I used to be a pirate. We're not exactly upstanding citizens.
You and I honor our word. I cannot say the same for the others.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Ravagers are also
You won't know
pirates.
until you give them a chance.
With a code. They're still pirates. Look at those ridiculous pecs. That's striations on the striations. Hey, can you let me out of your room? I don't think that is locked. Hey, Drax. Okay. I was like, why'd you lock me in?
Hey, Gamora.
You're supposed to knock.
What are you doing? You're supposed to be looking for money.
I did.
And?
I don't have any.
Also, what's with the dolls?
Do you value your life?
Is that a trick question? Okay, yes, mostly I value my life.
Good. Then pretend like you saw nothing and get out.
See you in the lounge?
Out.
Got it.
Hey. Yeah, I should check.
So, got any ideas to get those units together?
Do you have investments?
Hey, Bluebird, you copy?
You think I look like an investment
I know
type
you
of
think
guy?
I sold you out, and
Exactly. I don't sit behind no desk all day hoping for real estate.
Gamora, I was just...
Who are you talking to? What's a bluebird?
It, was Yondu's call sign. He was Bluebird and I was the kid.
Let me get this straight. Yondu Udonta, leader of the Ravager space pirates, scourge of the Sirius system and all-around scoundrel, used Bluebird as his call sign?
Even had it embroidered on the back of his jacket.
Amazing.
It was amazing. Pretty much from the day we met.
How did you two meet? Terrans and Centaurians aren't exactly neighbors.
We met on Chitauri Prime, about 3 years into my sentence.
Wait, Yondu was a prisoner of war? I thought the Ravagers were neutral.
They were. And they also weren't.
Ravagers had a simple code: steal from everyone. Yondu and I were cellmates.
The Ravagers had a simple code. Steal from everyone. Yondu said it made them neutral.
But they weren't. I specifically remember several Chitauri transports being hit when I was still... you know.
They hit just as many resistance ships, until a Chitauri cruiser uncloaked in front of them during a raid and...
Yondu ended up on Chitauri Prime, with you.
After we broke out, He could have left me on some space station or dropped me off at the nearest Nova Corps base, but he didn't. Instead, he invited me to join the Ravagers.
You were with them a long time. Must have enjoyed it.
I did. Being a Ravager was the first time I felt like I really belonged, if that makes any sense.
I felt the same way when I joined Richard Rider and the Resistance. Like I was finally in control of who I wanted to be.
Yes, exactly. Those first few years, it was like I had joined this really big, really dysfunctional family, which, now that I'm hearing it, would make Yondu my...
Space Dad?
Could have been worse.
Yep.
Yondu and I were cellmates. First thing he said when they put him in my cell was, "Boy, don't be going and getting attached, because I'm just here for the food." And the food was pretty terrible, so...
Yeah, that sounds like Yondu.
I had cellmates before, and none of them lasted long. The Shatari have these gladiatorial games, and...
You got used to people dying.
Not sure about that, but I didn't expect anyone to last long. I also didn't have my translation implant back then, so I might as well have been alone. But Yondu, he actually spoke English. Said he'd offered to translate in exchange for extra rations.
So even in the snake-infested hellhole, ever the schemer.
It's something we had in common. I'd been scheming for a way to escape since the day they took me. I just needed someone like Yondu to make it seem possible.
How did you escape?
Let's just say it was equal parts simple, complicated, and kind of embarrassing. But it ended with the two of us delivering a transport full of stolen supplies straight into the hands of the Resistance.
For a bucket-load of units, too, I bet.
Anyway, once we did, there was no going back. I was a Ravager.
That's cool.
Well, if you don't mind, I think I'd like to be alone for a bit.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll see you around.
Well, well, well. Let's see if we can find some stray units in here. Really?
$37 units?
We appear to be 7,963 units short.
If we intend to keep our ship, Peter Quill.
I know. We clearly need a plan.
And reconsider my initial proposal.
Oh, no, not Fin Fang Foom again.
Yes, we should go after Fin Fang Foom.
Drax, there are easier ways to get
Fin
paid.
Fang Foom is a name I haven't heard in forever.
What?
Oh, come on. You've been hoarding them stupid knickknacks ever since you first joined us. I mean, don't tell me they ain't worth nothing.
Quarantine zone was always
holding out on
My
us, Quill.
figurines are not knickknacks.
Team's in trouble, and you can't be bothered to make no sacrifice.
I will sacrifice your head.
Guys! I think we should hear out Groot for once.
Yeah, I agree.
He says we should combine both ideas.
Yep.
Sell Gamora's trinkets to Fin Fang Foom. It is brilliant.
Yeah, the only problem with your plan is that Lady Hellbender only buys monsters, and you are not a monster. He's not. He's the sweetest, most...
Aww.
No, you don't. This ain't something you can pretend. Oh, yeah?
Well, I'm a monster too.
I'll show you, monster!
Whoa, guys!
I love their
Groot,
relationship.
are you really offering to...
No, he is not offering that, okay?
It could work.
Sell Groot? I guess we could bust him out after.
Absurd. Lady Hellbender seeks the monster within. The small, ugly one is clearly the correct choice. He's cruel, sadistic, and his soul is filthy and filled with rage. Mr. Queen would pay a great sum for such a creature.
Really? How great?
How are you okay with this?
Because I know what I am. And I know what he ain't.
I vote we sell Groot. I honestly think Lady Hellbender will go for it.
Yeah, well, I vote for not Groot.
I also vote for the creepy little beast.
The creepy little
Votes each.
beast.
Peter?
Rocket.
Well, Rocket's definitely scarier on the inside. He's unstable and vicious and totally oblivious to the needs of others.
Okay, we get it, Quill.
The point is
He can also
I
break
think you
himself
make a
out.
fine monster. And we'll definitely need that tactical brain of yours to bust you out once you're in there. But just to be 100% sure, you're definitely okay with this.
Are you kidding? I can't wait to hold this over you.
All right, let's do this. Let's go sell a monster.
Love it.
We're not seriously flying into that.
They say the weather patterns of Seknarf 9 are tied to the temperament of this ruler.
That's not how women work.
Or weather. Anyways, I'm sure it looks worse than it is.
Kind of looks like a Cylon Raider from the front.
There! That's Lady Hellbender's fortress.
Get us in close, Quill. I don't want to walk in this.
Whoa! Yep, no problem. Flying the wrong way.
Nah, he's not flying at all.
Guys, relax. Just one minor adjustment.
Piece of cake.
You can't be serious.
What? This way we can scope things out before we finish the transaction.
We're like 100 clicks from her base.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You know how much I like scoping. Nope. Okay.
Kind of looks like that first planet you ended up on when you were watching Guardians of the Galaxy. But alright, I'm gonna pause right here. I'll come back tomorrow. Okay. Oh, since last name. Okay, cool. Yeah, hope you all had fun. I know I definitely did. Thank you to the, what was it, Ethrillis, Kitty Mancer, and CRDM King. Those follows. Again, welcome to the mobile entry. Now you're all one of us. I had a great time. I hope you all did as well. Yeah. We're definitely coming back this tomorrow, so I look forward to that. If you don't catch it tonight, because I know a lot of you do watch the VODs, there's like 50 viewers somehow, like everything I play, which, you know, that's friggin' awesome. But go ahead and check out my YouTube where I dump the archives. So yeah, if you don't catch it live, remember to catch it there. Have a great night. See y'all tomorrow.